it's Wednesday, and welcome to The One Show with Alex Jones.
And Matt Baker. Now, coming up, travel expert Simon Calder is here to explain how you might be able to claim compensation if you've experienced a delayed flight in the last 6 years.
Yes,
It's good
the
news,
last
isn't it?
6 years.
I've got at least 4, I think.
Good, well, hold your questions for Simon.
Right,
Will be
hold
on
them.
shortly. And you can forget the tiger who came to tea as we meet the British zookeeper who decided to bring 2 tigers home for breakfast, dinner and tea.
Oh, tiger on a
That's so cute.
skateboard. Lovely. We'll also be exploring why grown men, who should probably know better, are cleaning out newsagents of footy stickers up and down the country.
And meeting a man who is just 5 short of completing every World Cup album since 1970. There he is.
Yeah, and we can
Hoping
hear
you
some
help.
bass in the background, can't we? We will have live music from Gregory Porter as well, who will be joining the rest of his brilliant band outside. There we
Great,
are.
super to see you all. Thanks for coming, Gregory. And so, to our guests tonight. One gets up very early to host the Radio 1 breakfast show.
And the other stays up late to host Mock the Week. It's Nick Grimshaw and Dara.
There we go. Good to see you. So, Nick, well, we know you have a very, very busy life if you're partying and you're up early. Is now the time that you're usually getting up?
What, this time?
Yeah.
No, this is sort of having my tea watching the One Show time.
Oh, really?
Good answer, Nick.
That's the time that I
That's the
watch
right
YouTube on
answer.
That is literally the only time me and Nick ever get to spend together.
Yeah.
Just sitting down, having
with
tea,
him.
watching the One Show.
Because, like you said, he's working late nights.
Yeah.
I'm up early.
We pass each
Yeah.
other like ships in
I
the
know.
night, which is the only bonding time we have.
Yeah.
At 7 o'clock.
So this is ideal, isn't it? Being on the One Show.
Lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
Together.
Perfect, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, we love
And Nick
each
was
other.
saying his mother's going to be disappointed because he's got ripped jeans on.
I know.
On the One Show,
I
mind.
I didn't forget that I was on the One Show, but I would have wore a better outfit had I remembered this afternoon that I was on the One
Don't
Show.
tell you, Nick.
I'm really sorry, Mum.
Yeah.
She'll be furious about that.
And Dara, Mock the Week is
Starts back, yeah. We're starts first episode on tomorrow night.
Brilliant.
Clashing
So
with,
happy.
yeah, it's great. Clashing with Brazil, Croatia, so no one will watch it. But it's okay because the repeat is on Saturday night. Clashing with England versus Italy, so no one will watch the repeat. So it was the most liberating show we've ever been able to make.
And you've got England in the office sweepstake.
Have
will
I?
you? Yes.
No. I got Mexico in my office sweepstakes.
You've got
yeah.
Mexico. Well,
yeah,
there we are.
yeah.
They told us England. I said you won't be happy with that being Irish.
No, I probably would have excluded them entirely just out of just for old time's sake. No, I retweeted that Martin McGuinness, the head of the Sinn Féin, got England,
right.
which is a far more interesting and amusing thing. But no, I actually got Mexico bizarrely, which is great.
Well, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm loving it. Well, not in
Mexico's
terms
good.
of my long-term involvement in the tournament, but Mexico's great. You know? It's fabulous. Yeah. So.
Are you excited about the concept of football, Nick?
I don't really like any sport until it's at its zenith, until it's at its peak, and then I'm all in its
In
grill
there.
and I love it. So World Cup I like Wimbledon I like. So,
Good.
yeah, I will jump on the bandwagon.
Especially if you're wearing swimwear at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't need to enlighten
We don't
anyone
need
on
to
that.
go
Anyway.
into that.
Now, after a Court of Appeal ruling today, airlines may no longer be able to use technical faults as a blanket excuse to avoid compensating passengers for flight delays.
Now, the decision could open the floodgates for thousands of passengers who have been delayed in the past. Tony Livesey has been to meet the man who took on the airline.
£1 in compensation for flights that have taken place
huge,
any
isn't
time
it?
since 2008.
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing. So thanks to Ron Hazal, we can now go back 6 years. So how do you claim then, if you think, you've got a claim, you've been delayed, how do you get the money back?
OK, well, it has to be over 3 hours late arriving at your destination. And the airline, you approach and say, I'd like my money now after Hazal versus Jet 2, and that's the precedent-setting case. And they will probably say, well, you've got to supply information like the boarding pass of your original flight. And, of course, you haven't got that. So it will go back and forth, back and forth. You can go to a lawyer, and there's no-win, no-fee lawyers who will, take a slice of your winnings if you're lucky enough to win the case. Or you can just proceed yourself through the small claims court or money claims online. And it's anything from about £200 for a short hop within Europe to £500 for a long-haul flight.
Wow,
Do you know,
quite substantial.
I kind of worry a little bit about the safety implications of this, because if a plane maybe had, a bit of a loose wire or whatever, they might just think, oh, you know what, we'll just risk it. It's going to cost us £100,000. Let's just take off.
Well, and there are figures in aviation who have been expressing privately that concern to me. Now, let's make it absolutely clear. The UK and Ireland have absolutely astonishing levels
Yeah.
of safety.
Yeah.
There is no question that any pilot would depart
But
on
globally?
a flight if there were any issue with it. They simply wouldn't do it. Very, very professional.
Yeah.
However, you can kind of envisage circumstances, maybe a small foreign airline, and it's a 50-50 call. The pilot may think, well, you know, we're not completely happy about that, but if you've got the office on the phone saying, unless you get out of there in 5 minutes, it's going to be £100,000 that we have to pay all the passengers, you can envisage somebody, you know, a captain perhaps taking a chance. Now, aviation is incredibly safe, but that is a worry. Other things to worry about, of course, this £6 billion is going to come from somewhere, and it will come from passengers' fares, as will the cost possibly of having more planes on standby to limit the damage if there is a delay in the future.
No in-flight service, Al? You won't get your Stingline tonic?
And no Smarties and no mini pretzels. Can you cash in, boys? Have you been delayed at any point?
I honestly can't remember. It goes like 6 years, though, going back. I'm sure there's been times, but but is it going to create an industry like the PPI industry of people?
There's a little bit of that, but the top whack you can get is £500, so it's not quite the same levels of compensation. There are already, and you can expect over the next 24 or 48 hours, the no-win, no-fee industry really to get going. But remember, there's all kinds of reasons, from strikes to air traffic control problems to weather, where you're not going to get anything. It's only if a bit of the plane was broken and the airline has previously said, sorry, you're not having any money, wasn't our fault. You can now say, it was your fault. Lord Justice Laws says so.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Simon, for all of that. Lovely. Now, most people like to have a say about what's going on in the world around them, and now you have a chance to make a real difference.
Now, if you like the idea of being involved in making a decision that could shape scientific innovation and also allow you to have a say in how £10 million is to be spent, well, keep watching.
These are the Caledonian Crushers, a Scottish wheelchair rugby team. For Donald, Joe, Dave and co, wheelchairs are the ticket to freedom, mobility and fun. But what would it mean if technology could offer them the chance to stand and walk tall again?
Living with a spinal injury is difficult in day-to-day life, and this money could be so well spent in new cutting-edge technologies that could help people with spinal injuries. Why should anybody phone and text for paralysis and spinal injuries? Because it would help me and people like me. It would change our lives.
Antibiotics play a key part in our lives. Health campaigner Derek Butler learned firsthand the importance of preventing infections when his father became seriously ill.
I've seen the power of antibiotics because my own father had a very serious infection 4 years ago at 88, and he's now nearly 93. And is as healthy as they come for a 93-year-old who lives an independent life, and that's the power of antibiotics. This category is so important that it won't affect just today's generation, but generations for years to come. Your children and your grandchildren. The bugs know no boundaries. They will travel around the world. It's important that we treat these bacteria with respect.
At this depot in Glasgow, food that would normally go to waste is rescued and then redistributed to people who are malnourished.
Food poverty is on people's doorsteps, and this investment would see a dramatic change, if not a complete eradication of poor nutrition and hunger in Britain. If the food category won the Longitude Prize, it could transform millions of lives both here in the UK and worldwide.
Like anyone else, John and his friends love to socialise and have fun. But winning the next game of French bowls isn't the only thing on the minds of these players.
You're not in this by yourself. You know that there's other people exactly the same, got your problems and everything, and you need the support of all them people together. They should vote for dementia because there's so many people that's got this problem, and there's such a lot of people that don't realise they've got the problem.
An investment of £10 million make a massive difference. So please help, vote for dementia.
Water engineer Tim Kingham has worked for over 40 years on projects as far afield as Nigeria and Mozambique. He's seen firsthand how important it is to have access to clean water.
Water's a subject that I've been working with all my life. I've sort of experienced situations throughout the world, and one of the things that it desperately needs attention that money could possibly solve is to identify a simple, cheap way of testing the quality of water that everyone could do. We need this magic bullet, if you like, for converting dirty water into fresh water, salt water into fresh water.
Traveller and entrepreneur Ed Hewitt is passionate about the environment and has been exploring low-carbon energy for several years.
So with flying and carbon emissions, have always played a big part in my life. So I studied climate change as part of a geography degree at university, worked in the low carbon energy industry, and also being a really keen traveller, and that has involved taking lots of flights. And how do you balance those two things? We've already managed to put these flying pieces of metal into the sky. If we can keep them in the sky in a low carbon manner, then that would be just as much as a fantastic...
Hugely important issues. How do you choose? Well, we'll try and shed a little bit of light on this. So, Nick, which one are you drawn to? I mean, it's tough.
It's a tough decision. Yeah. I mean, it's something that you're obviously going to have to do research into and figure out how that money is used and how it's best used. But I don't know, I feel immediately drawn to water.
Yes.
Because I feel like that is something that's a basic need and something that you can do so much with, and it can affect so many people. But obviously they all affect everybody. So
it's an interesting balance of problems which seem very fundamental, like water and food, to ones that seem very specific, problems that affect people at the start of life, problems that affect the third world rather than the first world.
Yeah.
There's an interesting debate to be had about all of this. The important thing, by the way, to point out, as a benchmark, just as a base for all this, there is a long, glorious history in science of there being prizes awarded. This is named the Longitude Prize after the one that, specifically, there were a lot of, is a huge nautical issue of basically where are we on the planet when you're on a boat, and it was solved by a Yorkshire clockmaker called John Harrison, who basically devised the technology that we still use in wristwatches to this day.
Yes.
And he came up with these watches which were reliably could be taken out so you can tell from the sun where you were on the planet longitudinally. And so margarine was invented as a part of a prize. Napoleon looked for a cheap alternative to butter to feed armies and feed the poor. That's how margarine came about. Commercial space flight, there's a prize called the X Prize, which is a £10 million prize. So there's a long tradition of this, and this goes back centuries of offering this prize and saying to fine minds, go come up with
throw it out there.
And what we'll do is we will then use this prize to catalyse the ideas you've come up with. And see, the way this is working, this process is in two stages. The first one is after the Horizon thing, and thank you very much for taking that thing and then spreading it out even further. We've shown the 6 basic areas in which it's going to happen. People can vote on that. It's just a straightforward citizen science thing that we know from Stargazing Live. Millions of people get involved, and you say we want hear your voice on this.
We will have the results on
this show.
25th.
Right? And then after that, what happens is Nesta and the organisers of this, those who are looking after the money, it's public money, it's not BBC money, but it's public money, will look at the field that's been chosen and find a specific problem. For some of them, it already is a very specific. Carbon, for example, is can you fly to London to Edinburgh in a carbon-neutral flight? The ones about water and food would have to be nailed down more in terms of a specific problem. But all of them have issues, and then you find them which may be a solvable problem, and you give people 5 years.
So say somebody's watching out there and they think, I have a solution to one of these issues. How do they then go about submitting
They would contact Nesta. Nesta are the charity, or the government body, basically, who look after these kind of things, NESTA. So the details of those are also on the Horizon website.
Okay.
Particularly after this appears. I mean, I'd imagine, even if if one of these is chosen, the other 5, for a start, have had more high-profile discussion than they probably had for a long time of people discussing this. I remember when the show came on, I tweeted something, my Twitter mentions became full of people arguing this thing over that thing, and this is more fundamental, but this actually is more heart-wrenching, and this we should do. There's a lot of that discussion going on. See, the interesting thing about some of these problems are solved or aided in enormously simple, very, very cheap solutions sometimes. I mean, like, one of the most life-saving things that we've had in the last while is checklists for surgeries. And all across the world, the World Health Organization brought in a system where all surgeries pause before they put a knife into it and go, right, check this, and this, which has allowed, like pilots would do before a flight, and has allowed basically an elimination of simple human errors that can accumulate over the course of doing surgery after surgery after surgery in a high-pressure environment, and it costs nothing. So sometimes it's the simplest idea that actually doesn't cost anything, putting reminders to people to wash their hands, so in other words, you stop the spread of bugs into hospitals, that kind of thing, just at the right point. Sometimes it's a very simple idea that can have an enormously beneficial effect.
Okay.
Something that's quite personal to you.
Dara,
You're married to a surgeon.
I am married to a surgeon,
There we are.
They do this, and they do this all the time,